The injectors and fuel regulator are no longer up to snuff on this C4 Corvette, so let's get them replaced. As you can see, I'm not really a model of efficiency, but I have gathered some tools that we're going to need. One of the key items we're going to need is a T40, so make sure you've got one of these. And then, of course, you know, a couple ratchets, a couple extensions. You're undoubtedly going to need a 10, so there's definitely a 10 in here. And then we've got a 5/16, get that battery off, a couple screwdrivers. You never know if we're going to need a pick. Real important is that you have some new injectors. So I am upgrading these to the Bosch 3 injectors. And I also ordered a gasket kit at the same time I ordered the injectors. And here is our fuel pressure regulator. Now this is some silicone grease. We'll use those on the O-rings. And of course a Milwaukee M12 ratchet. First off, we need to use a 5/16 wrench and get this negative off this battery. Then we may as well get this off of here as well. And that's either just a regular flat blade screwdriver, or you can use like a 5/16 nut driver. Okay, next up is to get this throttle body off of here. Now I am going to disconnect this one, take these two bolts out over here so this assembly will come free. This is running under here, so it's going to get in the way if it's still connected, so we'll have to pop that out of the way. Then we've got bolts here, bolt here, bolt here, bolt here, 4 bolts for this. I still have coolant going into this throttle body, and I don't really feel like disconnecting any of that. So what I'm going to try and do is just pull this out of the way. I'll probably disconnect the IAC, and then there's another hose over here. It looks like it goes to the PVC, so we'll get that out of there as well. All right, let me do that. Okay, we got the throttle body off, and now we need to get the upper plenum off. We have a total of 8 bolts that we're going to need to take out, 4 on this side, 4 on the other side. As you can see, they are T40 Torx bolts, with the exception of this one, which you're going to need to use a deep 10 for this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the passenger side. Okay, so our 8 upper plenum bolts are out. Now we're going to take the upper plenum off. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the front and lift it up this way. There are some vacuum lines and a connector underneath it that we need to disconnect as we lift. So I thought we were ready to pull that upper plenum off, but turns out there's still one more thing we need to take off, and that is the power booster line. Take a look right here. You can see that is a 16 millimeter, and we're just going to need to get that off of there first. Okay, I got that pesky vacuum booster line off. Let's go ahead and try to pull this up now. That's much better. Hey, you can see we've got a couple vacuum lines and a sensor. Well, maybe you can see it. Got a sensor here, vacuum line here. Should just pull. Well, let me take this one off. Now I'm going to go around to the other side, see if we can get a better look at these vacuum lines. Okay, here are 2 vacuum lines that need to come off. Now you could label these, or you could just do what I'm doing, which is make a video, and then you can just go back to the video if you forget which one goes where. As you can see, this one right here goes to the fuel pressure regulator, which we will be replacing. Okay, so now if all you're doing is a fuel regulator, that's where we're at right now. Everything that's been removed, you need to remove to do the fuel regulator. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this fuel regulator right now. You've got to use a Torx. You've got to use a Torx T10 that's got a hole in the center of it. Don't know if you'll be able to see that. But anyways, the screws on the regulator, if you are replacing the diaphragm, which is what I'm doing, requires a Torx with a hole. They're not hard to find. All right, let's do it. This is your fuel pressure regulator right here. We're going to remove these screws and pull this off. Make sure you don't lose these screws. I'm going to go ahead and pull this vacuum line off just to get it out of the way. As you can see, it is a tiny little screw with a little walk washer on it. So I'm replacing this fuel regulator as kind of preventative maintenance. I'm replacing the injectors, so I may as well do the fuel regulator while I was here. But if you look, you can see there were some signs that this was going to go bad. What happens is these diaphragms tear. You can see this one starting to tear here. And also on the back side right there, you can see where it looks like it's got a little cut. So probably a good idea that I'm replacing this. So for this job, we're just going to clean out the inside of this real well. And then we're going to go ahead and clean those surfaces off as well. And then put this back in and put it back together. One more note on this. If when you take this apart, you find that there is fuel in here, then you know for sure that your regulator is bad. The fuel is not supposed to be on this side of the diaphragm. It's only supposed to be on this side. Going to put the diaphragm in. As you can see, the spring goes into the cup. And then line up the holes. I've already put a screw in here to keep it lined up as I put it back in. Now I'm just going to go ahead and get one started. And then get one started on the opposite side. Make sure I keep the diaphragm lined up. Okay, that takes care of the fuel pressure regulator. If you were just here for that, you can skip to almost the end. Let's go ahead and get this fuel injector wiring out of the way. Now what you do to take these off is you push that clip in, push it in, and pull up. Push this clip in, and you just pull it up. Okay, we've got two fuel lines right down here that we need to disconnect. This one, and then that one over there. They are 16 millimeter. Time to get to one of the potentially more difficult tasks, and that's removing this. As you can see, there's a Torx there. There's another one under here. There's another one in there. And then there's one right here on the inside. So we've got to get those four out. And then there's four more on the other side, all in the same equally hard to get places. You got one here, one over here, another one over here, and then the other one on the inside of back here, you have to go under this way to get to it. I'm not really sure that I need to take this one off, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this side off for sure and then see if I can get the fuel rail off. Alright, got the passenger side off. Now, did I say there were 4 bolts? Because I meant 6. Because there's another one way down here, another one way down there. Here is, you can see the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's off. I'm going to loosen up the fuel rail next, but let me show you what it took to get it off. Here are some of the various T40s that I ended up using. This one was very helpful. It's made by Stanley. And then use this. Just the different lengths to get into different places. So make sure you've got a good assortment of these on hand when you're trying to take that off. So next up, I'm going to take these 4 bolts out. I'm going to try that before taking this one off. But I'll probably end up having to take it off. Found a couple more. Now, interesting to note, this one, these 2 right here need to come out. Those are holding that fuel rail on. This intake has been off before. I can see gasket material down here, like blue Felpro gasket. So this has been off before, so they probably should have replaced the injectors when they had it out the last time. One of the things you probably want to do before you try and get it out is rotate all the injectors. Just reach down and rotate them. That'll break the O-rings free. So not a real big surprise, the other side needs to come off. Look, it's out. Yeah, that's pretty much out too. Well, it's been about a week since I worked on the vet. Life has gotten in the way, but I'm back at it today, doing a couple things. I did manage to rebuild the fuel rail in the last week. Let me just show you that real quick. So these are pretty easy to rebuild. You just take this out, this one out, and you can gently pull this apart. This tube has an O-ring, and you just replace the O-ring. You just clean out the inside, and you want to, if you're replacing, well, if you're replacing the fuel injectors and they're as bad as mine was, and I'll show you that in a second, you definitely want to take this apart and clean out the inside of the rail. So I went ahead and cleaned those out with the carb cleaner. Get all the deposits out. These come off real easily. You just take that off with a Torx bit and then pull this apart. You can clean the inside of these tubes and replace the O-ring that's on here. Make sure you've got a new O-ring. Don't reuse the old O-rings. And also, if you're doing if you're replacing fuel injectors, this would be the best time to go ahead and replace the fuel regulator. I know I did this earlier, but that was just in case you're someone who had just tuned into this video to watch the fuel regulator replacement. I just wanted to show that you could do it without taking all this apart. But you had to take this out to do the fuel injectors. So with this out, go ahead and rebuild the fuel rail, put new O-rings in here, clean everything out, and replace the fuel regulator diaphragm at the same time. So this is what I was talking about with the fuel injectors. You can see all of the rusty crap in here. I'm not really sure why it's this nasty, but it is. The fuel filter's been replaced. So, well, I don't know, your guess is as good as mine. Next up, what I'm also doing now is clearing off all the old gaskets. So make sure you get this surface nice and clean so that the new gaskets seal properly. I don't think the last time, there's evidence that this has been off before. I can see that the intake manifold bolts have been replaced. And I don't think they cleaned this very well the last time. It looks like there may have been some vacuum leaks around this intake. That might have been part of the reason that it wasn't running very great. That, and of course, you know, the fuel injectors, major contributor right there. All right, back to work cleaning these off. As you can see, all the parts for the tune port injection are now clean. The gasket surfaces are nice and flat, and all the old gasket material is gone. So now we are ready to start reassembling things. And cleaned all those surfaces on the actual intake, and I cleaned the fuel injector holes. I've already put 6 of the fuel injectors in, and they're ready to go now. So it's real important to note, if you're putting stock injectors back in, or the Bosch 2 upgrade injectors, they go on the rail. They go on the rail first, and then the rail and the injectors goes into the intake. These are Bosch 3s that I'm using. And with the Bosch 3s, the injectors go into the intake, and then the fuel rail goes on top of the injectors. So there's a difference. That's why I'm doing it this way. So again, if you have Bosch 3s, do it the way I'm doing it. If you have Bosch 2s, put it all into the fuel injector rail first, and then put it in. So that's how that's done. Now let me show you something about these fuel injectors. So as you can see, this says 22 pounds at 43.5 psi, matched Bosch 3. Now, they came in this packet here. I looked at the directions very well, and it didn't say anything about what they mean by matched. I'm assuming they mean that they're all 22 pounds at 43.5 psi. However, injectors are installed in pairs in this intake manifold, and they happen to ship them in pairs. So I have just gone ahead and installed them in pairs. Don't know if it matters, but no harm in doing that. So what we do is, here's one of the Bosch 3 injectors, and what we're going to do is we're going to put some O-ring grease on all the O-rings, and then pop it in to the intake manifold, and we'll do that with the other one as well. Okay, so you're just going to take the fuel injector, which you can see has some O-ring grease on it, and just press it down and kind of twist it into place there. There they are. They're installed. Now I'm going to get the fuel rail, put the fuel rail on here, and see if we can get everything to seat. All right, now to get this in, we got to go in this way and take a real good look at this out. We're hanging up on something over here. Okay, as you can see, the fuel rail's on now. You can see the injectors are seated. These 4 bolts have been installed, and we've also installed the fuel lines again, the 2 fuel lines, and the 2 bolts that are right on front of the intake manifold that hold the fuel rail in place. So that's all been installed. So now we need to hook up the battery and turn the key on so that the fuel pump can pressurize the fuel rail, and we're going to look and make sure we don't have any leaks. If we put it all back together before we test it, we will be sorry if there are any leaks, because we'll have to take it all back apart. Okay, I've hooked up my little Gulu jump box because that battery is about as dead as it gets. I do have a video on this Gulu jump box if you want to see it. You hit the boost button. I just heard it make some noise. So let's put the camera there. Alright, I heard the fuel pump. Don't see anything leaking. I'm going to turn it off. Cycle it again. Okay, let's take a good look for fuel leaks. Places you want to look for them, obviously, are around the fuel injectors, and if you replace the O-rings on the fuel rails, you should be looking there as well. I do not see any leaks. So, looks like we're good. I am going to take that Schrader valve off and check and just make sure that we do have fuel pressure there. But pretty sure we do. If we don't, you'll be hearing from me in a second. Fuel rail's been checked for leaks, and there are no leaks, so we're good to go there. Now we need to start putting this back together. Now, this is the gaskets, and you might look at the gasket and wonder what this little doohickey is right there. Well, obviously when putting this back together, you got to try and keep these gaskets. You got to try and keep these gaskets from falling off. So what this does is this goes into these little holes here, like so, and you push them in a little bit harder, and that keeps the gasket from falling out. So this is the upper part. But what we're working on now is the lower part. Now the lower part, they have them as well, but they actually go into the intake first. So we're going to stick these guys down in there and stick them into the little holes that they've got. Yeah, I probably should have done that before I put the fuel rail on, but, well, I'm not that smart. Hopefully you're smarter than me, and you'll have watched this entire video all the way through and see that it's probably a better idea to just put those on before you put the fuel rail on. But anyways, water under the bridge. So you can see we have the gaskets in place over on this side. They're also in place over on the other side. I've already started putting the intake back together. So while we can still see, make sure that this wire's here in the right place. If you disconnected any of this, make sure it's hooked up and running underneath the rail. These two over here as well. One that goes to the fuel regulator. And also on this one, you have this cable here, which is the TV cable for the 700R4 in here. That runs right in between here on this car. So whatever you took off when you were taking it apart, make sure it's back in the right place. All right, we're in the home stretch. Now it's time to install this. You got to remember we need to connect this. We need to connect this. We need to connect these two. Now our gaskets go on here. As you can see, the little plastic piece, you just push it in. Same on the other side. And then we're gonna do the same thing on this one right here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and connect this. Be careful not to mess up the gaskets. You wanna just very carefully drop it into place. We are getting hung up on something. All right, gaskets still look good. Go ahead and grab a couple bolts. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure you get this tube over here kind of in place so you don't have to fight it later. When you put these in, when you put those bolts in, you want to make sure you just get them, you start them with your fingers. Okay, they are all threaded now by finger, so I'll go ahead and put a wrench on them, get them in the rest of the way. So now we just need to get the throttle body on. Gonna put that on. Put the vacuum line on for the brake booster. It's back on. So we are almost there. Okay, it's finally all put back together. So now we can fire it up and see what happens. I had to put a jump starter on it though. Well, that's a success. This car wouldn't idle before I did any of this. It would just die. So, all right, we'll take it for a test drive tomorrow. All right, well, as you can hear, it's running, it's idling, and I'm about to take it for a drive. Now, what I probably should have done was replace the IAC while I was there, and definitely I'm going to be replacing the fuel filter on this. Now, the previous owner replaced the fuel filter right before I bought it, but I'm fairly certain it's going to need it again, just based on the way those fuel injectors, the old fuel injectors look. Yeah, fuel filter needs to be replaced. So if you're doing fuel injectors, probably just want to go and do the IAC. I mean, you got the throttle body off, may as well at least take it off and clean it, which is what I should have done, but I didn't. So do that. Also replace the fuel filter, which is something I should have done. And this thing, who knows, maybe it needs a fuel tank. But I'm gonna take it for a drive, and please like, subscribe. You might see more on this C4 down the road, but we'll see. So anyways, have a good one, y'all. Okay, I know I said I was done, but I'm back. Wow, this is like a new car. These injectors, it's amazing how bad this thing was running. And I mean, I knew it was bad, but this is literally like driving a new car. So replace those injectors, y'all.